Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Welcome back. Today we have a fun show for you. It is how to sell your real estate listing fast, 10 genius tips. So what's happening in the market? We're seeing a lot of price reductions, finally. And we're seeing a lot of markets where agents don't really know how to properly price a home in the first place, let alone get a price reduced. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to tell you 10 easy ways to, make your next listing sell fast. And in some cases, interestingly enough, the same material can translate to great content when you're talking to a prospective expired listing. And we believe in many markets, one of the biggest opportunities is going to be knowing how to work with expired sellers. And expired sellers, in many cases, are some of the most motivated, frankly, easiest to work with, and most grateful real estate clients you'll ever come across.
That's right. And interestingly, this morning I read an article that stated that there are 10 cities officially deemed buyer's markets.
Oh, really?
Yes. And when was the last time we heard that, right? Now, that was, I believe, researched and posted by NAR, and their criteria was longer days on the market, more price reductions, and a bigger disparity between list price and sold price. Their point was that these top 10 markets, and they were largely in parts of Atlanta, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida mostly. And I think there was this town in Oregon. So they were saying that this is a great opportunity for buyers because they're more affordable markets, it's less competitive, and because they don't have to go over list price. Well, so that doesn't mean that, the world is coming to an end. It just means there's starting to be more opportunities for buyers. And as it relates to this topic, that means that if you have to compete against 10 other listings and you never had to do that before, you're going to have to be a lot more careful about a lot more things.
So I'm going to go back to what you said.
Sure.
So you're saying that their definition of a buyer's market is different than what it used to be, evidently. Because it used to be just basically where it was 120 days or something like that.
Yeah, most of these, because I read all of those, they were ranging from like 50 to 120 days on the market.
Yeah, there you go. So that's what the traditional definition of a buyer's market is, where essentially supply equals the demand.
Where you're no longer seeing a whole bunch of offers to get it sold. There may be just one buyer that goes in or one buyer that makes an offer, and it might have taken them 100 days to get that offer. That's the difference.
My head fills full of all the issues that agents who have never sold in buyer's markets before, which is 99% of our listeners.
That's our topic today.
Exactly, are going to be experiencing. So get ready to take notes. Now remember, if you want a copy of our notes, they're waiting for you. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. harrisrealestatedaily.com is our new newsletter, and it is the place where all of our show scripts and all of our shows outlines are going to live, as well as a lot of unique content. We're picking up some interesting contributions from our contributors, agents like you who are writing great content that we're going to start publishing on harrisrealestatedaily.com, which, by the way, if you would like to be a contributor, please send a writing sample directly to me. Just email it to me at tim@timandjulieharris.com, or you can message me over on Instagram. It's Tim and Julie Harris. Obviously, that's our Instagram handle. And show me a bit of your writing. And I don't mind if you've used ChatGPT to help you write the article. That's perfectly fine. But we would love a good, a diverse, whole bunch of different topics. It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate focused. It can be health and wellness. It can be all kinds of different things. So if you've got something that you think our audience might be interested in, and you would maybe like to be a contributor for our new newsletter, we are welcoming submissions. And like I said, just email me directly, tim@timandjulieharris.com, or just message us over on Instagram. In the meantime, make sure you're subscribing. The link to subscribe is below in today's show description, as well as just simply going to harrisrealestatedaily.com directly and registering. It takes like 3 seconds.
All right. So, of course, you're excited to get your next listing on the market or your next handful of listings on the market. But now you're feeling the pressure to do an amazing job for your sellers who have put their trust in you and are excited about making a move. Well, all sellers expect the same things from you, whether they're repeat clients, referrals, relocating executives, luxury homeowners, or first-time seller. They want the most money for their home in the least amount of time with the fewest hassles and stress. So how can you deliver? Preparing your next listing so it shows like a model home is the goal. Even if you have little competition from other homes for sale, and it's not going to be the same every time, it's still your job and the seller's expectation to market, advertise, show, and sell their home in its best light. And the more competition you have, the more it becomes critical to show your home the best versus the other ones you're competing with. So we're going to talk about the top 10 things. There's always more that we can do, but the top 10 things to do before you approve that first showing. Now, start by discussing with your seller clients that the way that they live in their home when it's for sale is different than how they live in it when it's not. Then create your checklist based on these action items. And as always, we have a lot more deep dive in this in Premier Coaching. So meanwhile, how can they get the notes? Because there are 10 things here.
Right. HarrisRealEstateDaily.com, as I just said.
Okay, perfect. So just making sure we covered that. All right, number 1. Buyers make their decision on a home in 2 places. First, from the street, based on the curb appeal, and secondly, in the foyer as soon as they enter the home. Make sure both places shine. It can net your seller thousands or tens of thousands more when you do this right. Some examples: landscaping might need to be upgraded, spruced up, remulched, or weeded. Or if you live in the desert, raked. Okay. So does the front door look inviting? Add a wreath, paint it, remove a screen door, or do whatever it'll make more like the front door of a Hallmark movie. Add a welcoming doormat, some potted plants on the porch, or a new door knocker, for example. That's from the front of the house. Remember, 50%. How many times have you guys shown property? You pull up and the buyer looks at the front of the house. They're like, nope, we can skip it, because they just didn't feel like they could come home to it. Well, assuming they make it past the front door, in the foyer is the second place to pay attention to. The goal is a bright, spacious feel. No coat trees, no furniture, no clutter. Remember, you'll have an agent, 1 or 2 buyer clients, and maybe their kids walking through for the showing. It can't feel cluttered or congested. They're imagining having friends over and being proud of their home.
Now, Premier Coaching clients, this is all part of our complete home selling guide, which you get as part of Premier Coaching. And what the complete home selling guide is, it's a little book that Julie and I created. I don't even remember how many pages it is.
It's quite a few.
30 or 40.
Yep.
And you can customize this for yourself, but we really designed it so you don't have to. And this is something you give to the seller after you list their home, and it gives them all these checklists. So what Julie's reading you are the just information, but what you should be considering having your sellers do. But what you really want to do is get the complete home selling guide and give that to the seller, and it is going to give them an actual checklist of the things they should be doing, and explains to them why how important it is for them to do these things. Like Julie was mentioning landscaping. There in the complete home selling guide, there is a graph, if I'm remembering correctly, that shows what the return on investment is for doing different things. And landscaping is like one of the things you put, $500 into landscaping, you get like $1,000 back, those types of things when you're putting the house for sale. So yeah, definitely Premier Coaching clients use that to its fullest intent. And if you're not in Premier Coaching, you know what to do.
Yeah, and in fact, in Premier Coaching, there's a standalone full color 1 page that they can use on a listing presentation, which shows that ratio of money spent versus money returned. It's a really nice piece where it talks about, maybe you go on a listing and they're thinking, oh, maybe we really like the house now that it's cleaned up. Maybe we should remodel it. Well, what do you mean? If you spend X on a half bath, for example, you're not going to get 100% back in most markets. So it gives you some more talking points to make good decisions with those sellers.
But this loops back to what we were talking about at the top of the show with regards to expired listings, because a lot of times you'll find the expireds didn't sell for the simplest of reasons. Maybe it's the Julie's example. The foyer was just stuffed full of junk, and basically people felt, claustrophobic the second they walked in. Or maybe the landscaping looked terrible. Silly, stupid things making a huge difference.
Which didn't matter in the previous market. All your house had to do is be available.
And their previous listing agent didn't have the skill set, or frankly didn't have the stomach to tell them the truth about the, kind of sketchy house. And the sellers were spoiled by the previous market. See how all of it's changed and it's become skills-based? Catch up, guys, if you're not there yet.
Exactly. Point number 2, remove excessive furniture so the floor plan makes sense and is easy to navigate. Imagine 3 adults wearing coats and purses walking through each room. Are they dodging too many chairs and ottomans? How do you do that? Well, you can use a home consignment center or a similar store to consign the furniture they don't want anymore, or simply donate it to a homeless shelter, a military base, or a fire station. Workout equipment, pool tables, and big screen TVs are all fair game for the decluttering project. dog kennels, cat trees, and things like this can all find good homes through donations or posting online.
If you have new construction in your area, one of the greatest things you can do, obviously, is try to sell that prospective seller into maybe a new construction home. But when they're there reviewing or seeing the different new construction models, you have to subtly and nicely remind them that their home is going to be competing against this new construction home, and have them make note of the fact that there's no personal family pictures anywhere. Have them make fact that there's not a big screen TV that's over the fireplace. Have them notice that all the differences between how you sell a house versus how you live in a house, and then maybe nicely suggest that they need to kind of step up and realize that they are going to be competing in the big times against new construction, who is, they always are going to be more compelling than resale, because most resale sellers aren't going to really take the time to take the decluttering and redecorating process seriously.
Yeah, well, those days are over in many markets right now. Right?
But it's also important that you guys understand your job as a real estate practitioner is not to be a decorator. That's a great way to get your seller to hate you or never list with you in the first place. If you walk into a house, you got to remember, if you see things that you don't like, you got to keep your yap shut. Just don't say anything. Because you leave it up to the guide, or maybe if it's a more expensive home, it might make sense to have a home stager come in and tell them. Because in most cases, people have chosen to decorate their house the way they did because they, like the decorations. And if you're in there making fun or saying the wallpaper's obsolete or the color's wrong or all the rest of it, you could really emotionally scar somebody, and they won't tell you. You just won't take the listing because the next agent comes in is going to say how much they love the mounts on the head, the heads and the mounts on the walls, and how they love the, alarmingly bright shade of yellow paint in the foyer, and how they love the, all this, right? They're going to say what is going to make the seller feel good, and they're going to get the listing. I'm not saying it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do, but I'm saying you got to, realize in a competitive market, you're going to have to make sure you don't make any of these rookie mistakes. That is the reason in Premier Coaching, we tell you to give them the complete home selling guide after you have the listing contract signed. Your job, again, is not to be a decorator, not to be a home inspector, not to go in there and find all the flaws with the house or give them little tips on to sell it. Your job is to sell them on why they should want to list with you. And if you think you're going to do that by trying to step outside of the boundaries of what you're legally allowed to do as a real estate practitioner, not only will you not get the listing, but you're probably also going to, maybe in some cases offend people.
Absolutely. It is a huge rookie mistake, isn't it? Because sometimes agents will talk about all this stuff on a, quote, listing appointment because they're nervous. And maybe it's the only thing that they know about. Maybe they just heard this podcast and they forgot they're not supposed to do this till after they have the listing. And you can actually, as you said, make the seller kind of hate you. And what they'll say is, we chose somebody else because they had more enthusiasm for the house.
Exactly. They'll say that, or they'll say, they believed in the house more. And you thought, oh my gosh, I hit it all cylinders. I did a great job. Nope, you didn't. You didn't listen to what we said. You pissed the sellers off. They didn't want to list with you. Oh, and by the way, you'll be surprised how frequently a seller will, especially a more amiable sort, will hold a grudge, even if it's not in their best interest, like you listed a house, you made them mad somehow. They're not going to tell you you made them mad, but what they're not going to do is they're not going to help you sell the house. I realize that doesn't make sense, but sellers oftentimes don't make sense. So they're not going to allow showings. They're not going to clean up the bathroom. They're not going to do all these things that would make it so that you could sell the house sooner, even if it ends up costing them money because they don't want you to win because you offended them. I promise you that does happen. And from an expired listing agent perspective, you're going to go hunt expired as, be a prospective listing agent for that seller. You got to remember that a lot of times there was nothing wrong with the price, nothing wrong with the condition, nothing wrong with, the location. There was just something that went, awry with regards to the previous listing agent's relationship with that seller. So learn how to be a professional listing agent. You will do things that other agents can't imagine.
Yes, have some, finesse to these conversations, right? So, and I remember we went on a listing once and the seller said, I know we needed to lower the price, but I wouldn't give the other agent the satisfaction, which makes absolutely no sense. And it did need a price reduction, but they had gone astray with their relationship.
Well, think about this. How many expired listings have your coaching clients gone on where they walked in the house and they said, this house is priced right, condition's great, location is great, and all they did was new pictures, new description, and the house sells instantly?
That's true.
Or maybe even they can raise the price because the market changes just because of that dysfunctional relationship they had with that previous agent.
Yeah, we should do a podcast just about that.
Well, for sure. Or their motivation changed. The seller's motivation changed, while they listed the house a year ago with this previous agent, and maybe they had, a year to build a new home, but now the listing expired and now they're down to 60 days before they have to take delivery of their new home. So you got to open your mind to the opportunities that are only available in a market like this. It's exciting.
I'm feeling the collective unconscious of agents out there that are about to have something expire or get fired because they're thinking about this and their relationship maybe with that seller, and it's been too many days on the market.
And they're not calling them. They're not communicating.
That's what I'm headed towards, right? The biggest way to get fired is lack of communication, but we'll do a different podcast about that.
Well, in our pre-listing pack, which we have all of you guys use as premier coaching clients, we have something called the communication guarantee because, guess what? If someone's transacted before, I would say 90% of the time, their biggest complaint was lack of communication from their agent. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to have a written guarantee as far as, and they're going to, choose from a menu how frequently and how they want to be communicated with. And you're going to schedule yourself to communicate with that seller the way they want to be communicated with. And I got good news for most of you. They're not going to want to talk with you every week. They're just going to want some kind of CMA report. As long as you put in writing how you're going to communicate with them, they sign the communication guarantee. You sign the communication guarantee when you take the listing. You will not find that seller is building resentments against you because you're not communicating with them, because you put it out on the table ahead of time. That's called having skills. We teach you how to do that in Premier Coaching. Point number 3.
Point number 3, have a pet plan for your listings with pets. Not everybody loves pets and some are allergic. Both will ruin an otherwise good showing. Doggy daycare or finding a pet sitter for showings may be a good move. Or maybe your seller, if they have dogs, they meet the showing at the door and they take them on a dog walk. But you have to have a plan. You can lose entire showings. They won't even want to come in the house if all they hear is barking.
Most people, even if they're loving pets, to Julie's point, don't love other people's pets, don't love the smell of other people's pets.
That's the next point.
It's kind of like children, frankly.
Well, that's true.
Everyone loves kids, but not necessarily other people's kids.
Well, it's fear of the unknown, right? Or maybe you're totally 100% dog person, but you're walking in with your 3-year-old and you don't know this dog that's in the house roaming around. You can be intimidated and then ditch the showing. So point number 4 is related to that. Smells, identifiable or not, I'm not sure which is worse, are not good for showings. Cat pee, smoke, strong cooking spices, mustiness, it's all bad. So maybe remove the carpet, drapery, and furniture that could be emanating those odors. It depends on the situation. You can also invest in an air ionizer. You can get that on Amazon and run it between showings to eliminate lingering smells. Add this to your toolkit for any listing with these issues.
Read the instructions on the air ionizers. There's a one you can get from Amazon. It's this little sort of, I would say not very sophisticated looking box with a dial on the outside, but it works extremely well. Is ionizer the right word?
Yes, I looked it up.
Okay, good.
Yep. There's different ones for different square footages and things like that.
But advanced tip, don't breathe it. That's the thing I'm getting to. Especially children and pets, don't breathe ionized air. It's really super bad for you.
And don't run it during showings either.
Because what it does basically is the ionizer kills all the sketchy smells that are in the air. And then oftentimes if you run it in a room where maybe there was water damage and maybe there's still a musty smell, maybe a basement, you can run it there for like a day, and it actually does a shockingly good job of killing all the the airbound mold and stank air. And that's definitely something you should be doing. Mm-hmm. And then replace that if you want to put something. There's all kinds of, like, if you guys ever walked into a really nice restaurant or a hotel or a spa, and there's like this sort of almost mystical odor in the air, you feel like you've kind of transcended.
Fragrance, not odor. Fragrance.
Oh yeah, well, same thing really. But you can get these little, they're not like these Glade plug-in things. They're these things that you look for them on Amazon that, and you can hide these fairly well, that put out like an aromatic mist. I've seen them when Julie and I go different places. I was actually considering getting one for our house. Yeah, but things like that are going to make a difference. And by the way, when you're talking with a seller trying to win the listing and you show them all these extra things you're going to do, it does make a difference. They appreciate the fact that you're more professional. Julie doesn't have her. Oh, yeah, she does. It's coming up. All right, so I'm not going to step on any of her
points.
points.
I'm reading your mind.
Yes.
We'll make sure we talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5, here's something to consider. Get the home pre-inspected and remedy any items that could wreck the deal later on. The most important items, of course, are HVAC, plumbing, electricity, and safety. This is especially important with older houses where you don't really know the age of things and it's a little scary looking. Change all the furnace filters, knock the dust off the hot water tank, and check for mold in the basement and crawl spaces. When you start showing the home, offer a copy of the inspection along with receipts from any recent repairs. Mention it in the agent-to-agent comments in the MLS. Again, especially with older houses with older appliances.
So let's drill down.
Yeah.
So American Home Shield, we have it on each of our rental properties. Dozens of rental properties have American Home Shield. It saves us thousands of dollars per year. Consider doing that on your own home or on your rental properties.
Seller's coverage.
Exactly. That's where I'm going. Get seller's coverage. So you take a listing and you're going to suggest the seller buys an American Home Shield warranty, gets seller's coverage. They're going to say, I don't want to spend the money. You're going to say, well, here's the reason that you do want to spend the money. Because that will automatically transfer to the buyer as a, then would be a buyer's coverage. But it's also a nice incentive. And if you're in a market where the days in the market, where it is a buyer's market, the days in the market's pushing 3-4 months, you can show that that's going to give that buyer an incentive to want to buy your house over theirs. But I'm going to give you a little advanced coaching. If you walk into a house and, you're not Bob Vila, but this house needs a lot of work, and you don't want to be the purveyor of bad news, and you don't want to cost yourself the listing because, obviously the wall in the basement's bowing, that isn't right, and you walk into, the kitchen and, there's the floor isn't straight and all these other things, right? But if you start meandering down that path of overly criticizing the house because the sellers don't even see these things because maybe they lived in the house for so long or they don't think it's a big deal. By the way, that's what every seller is going to say. Mm-hmm. Oh, that bow, a bow in the wall in the basement. It's not because the wall is about to collapse. It's because I find it artistic.
They'll say, well, we've lived with it for 20 years. It doesn't bother us.
Exactly. So what you do is you call in an inspector, and the inspector acts as the purveyor of bad news. He's going to be the one, or she's going to be the one that's going to make the list of bad, and then you put a home warranty on it showing that the things were fixed. Don't get in the position of being a home inspector yourself. That is not your job.
Very well put and true. Number 6, and I know some of you have stopped doing this because of the lack of inventory. You didn't have to for a while. Create an amazing home brochure with professional photos. If you can't personally create these using Canva or another method, find out who the top luxury agents in your market use and consider hiring them. It does matter. At the end of the day, the buyers are walking away deciding which house they like the best after 5 showings. If you have a really killer home brochure that's beautiful, you have a lot better likelihood of being chosen.
So a home brochure isn't really to sell the house, if we're being honest, and it isn't really for the buyer, isn't really for the buyer's agent. The home brochure is for all the neighbors to see what a kick-ass job you did marketing that property.
Assuming you use a brochure box by your sign like we coach you in real estate.
Or door knock them and invite them to a neighbors-only open house. Give them a copy of the brochure. The brochure basically is a silent salesperson for you to show that you're not a lazy agent. And I'll tell you, Julie, we're associated with eXp Realty. eXp Realty's marketing department has a lot of really brilliant options for creating home brochures and very inexpensive. When you and I were selling real estate, we would spend sometimes some of the home brochures and the more expensive properties we were selling. They would cost us not $100, but probably $30 to $40 because everything was printing was an arm and a leg. A photographer was an arm and a leg.
All of it was custom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can have all that done now essentially online, and especially using AI to write great descriptions. And save all kinds of money. But do it. Don't blow it off. Do consider using a brochure box on your sign. Don't put your fancy, expensive brochures in there. But, something. Again, you're trying to win future listings. That's really what real estate marketing is truly about. You're trying to show potential future sellers what you're going to do to get the property sold. Because I got news for you. Marketing does not sell real estate. Price, condition, location sells real estate, and obviously putting it in the MLS, and in the future putting it into your broker's MLS, however that actually is going to work itself out. The marketing is to show the market that you're actually somebody who's doing something far beyond what your competitors are doing. And as far as eXp Realty goes, one of the best business decisions all of you can be making is seriously looking into upgrading your brokerage experience. And if you're a broker and you're a team, this certainly applies to you. And if you're looking for someone to be very proactive in your success at eXp Realty, Julie and I welcome the opportunity to earn the right to be your eXp Realty sponsors. You can text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206, or scroll down below and you can click the link to learn more about our eXp Realty group. Point number 7, Julie Harris.
Point number 7 is so important. We talked about it the other day when we were doing a podcast about pricing. This comes into play right before you're ready to launch your next listing, and that is preview the competition the day before you launch your new listing. Make sure your pricing is still accurate and you know what the potential buyer for your listing is also considering versus your listing. Your price has to make sense. Sometimes you may want to take your seller client along for these showings so you're all on the same page regarding pricing. You may lower your potential price. You might raise your potential price. You're just checking your facts. Are the other listings or even new construction offering seller incentives? Is that a common thing in your market? You may need to meet or beat them depending on what you're up against, but not knowing that could cause your house to sit on the market too long and maybe expire or get you fired. All right, number 8. Remove scuffs and smudges from the walls and painted railings in the home. Use a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser sponge to remove shoe marks and other minor things. If that doesn't spruce it up, painting may be in order.
Advanced coaching tip. If you have a little kid, I'll tell you what Julie and I figured out how to do. Zoe goes around with a magic eraser. Now, she's not very tall, so, she's only going to get so high on the walls.
Which is where the scuffs are, of course.
Because she's the ones that left them.
Yeah.
And what we do is we pay her $1 for every 5 scuffs on the walls that she, finds and then removes with the magic eraser. You might want to consider doing the same thing.
Exactly. It's a good use of, kid power. All right, number 9, review the exterior of the home, including the backyard, porches, decks, and fences. Repair anything that will come out on an inspection, and just like the front, make it more inviting. Think about kids, pets, and summertime activities. Does the back or side yard look inviting, or does it look a little sketchy? Add trees or other screening if the house has questionable views. Even if the potential buyer loves the home, this could kill the deal. Anticipate objections and mitigate them before they cause the home to sit or need price reductions. This is a common thing you do see on expireds. House was great, but something was ruining the feel of the outside.
Well, it's because the sellers were being cocky and thinking that rotten deck out back wasn't something they had to replace prior to putting the house for sale.
Yep.
Because after all, they bought it with that rotten deck 5 years ago. And of course, the deck hasn't gotten less rotten in the last 5 years. They bought it that way. Why wouldn't the next buyer buy it that way? Because it's a different market.
Yes, and a home inspection will kill that anyway.
Exactly. You guys see how we're trying to, give you a little bit of an advanced technique to dealing with maybe sellers that might be a little overly sensitive about criticisms of their homes, or frankly, you're wanting to avoid having conversations that might result in any kind of conflict where they won't want to list with you. This is just part of what you learn in Premier Coaching, but I know that we're motivating you guys to want to go after, especially some of this expired listings. So excited for you.
Yeah, none of these are hard things to fix, right?
No, exactly.
Okay, so point 9.5, and I can't believe I didn't have this in here, was about shoe covers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so.
You did read my mind from earlier.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? Okay, so we did this on virtually every listing. You can get inexpensive baskets from a craft store or garage sales or whatever. Get a bunch of nice looking baskets and put a tag on the top that says, please remove your shoes to protect the floors, which may someday be yours. Then you go to Amazon and you order some inexpensive medical shoe covers, tie them in a little bundle, and make sure that people cover their shoes. This does 2 or 3 things. One is it makes it so your seller doesn't have to nonstop be vacuuming, especially after open houses, lots of showing traffic. Number 2, and most importantly, it shows from the front. You put this in the front foyer or on the front porch. It shows from the second that they walk in, this seller cares about their home.
Now stop there for a second.
Yeah.
So I want you to think about this from a marketing, you marketing yourself as the next listing agent. You're going to take a new listing. It was a previous expired. Everyone is excited to see if you're going to get this listing sold. You're going to have them change up some landscaping. You're going to have them repaint the front door. You're going to have them, clean up some clutter in the front of the house, remove half the crap in the foyer, maybe paint the walls in the foyer. You're going to remove the stanky smell that's in the foyer. And then and on the sign, you're going to have a brochure box that has a beautiful brochure of the house. You're going to walk to the neighbors and you're going to invite them all to the neighbors only open house you're doing, the neighbors only, new listing preview. They're going to walk into the house. Their experience is going to be, wow, Bob really has got his act together. Look what a great job he's doing marketing this house. They're going to see the very fancy brochures that are sitting there on the counter. But what they're really going to remember is those shoe covers. They're going to remember, it's a subconscious psychological thing. Bob put these shoe covers in here to protect the floors so that, the owners wouldn't have to constantly clean. Now, from a buyer's perspective, think what psychological effect that has on them. The buyers are thinking, well, here are sellers that are wanting to protect floors, wanting to protect this house, even though they're moving away from it. You guys get how the combination of all the things we teach you in Premier Coaching makes you confident, makes you excited, makes it so you actually want to go out and maybe do the real work of real estate finally, because what is it? Knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear. Now more than ever, a skills-based approach to real estate is going to be the thing that makes the difference in your business and your personal life.
Yeah, and who's really killer at this is Tammy Irby in Northern Virginia. She has put these points as well as several others into her own brochure supplement for a listing presentation, where she shows, she even has before and after pictures of, what the ordinary agent would put out there if they even do.
You're not wanting to tell the whole story, I can tell.
I want to protect her a little bit.
Yeah, you're wanting to protect us too.
Yeah.
So one of the things when we go on listing appointments, because we did all of these things, is Julie and I, and didn't do this every time, but when we did it, I have to say it was tremendous fun. Is we would walk into a seller's house and we would show the seller. Obviously, we had it set aside in a briefcase or whatever. We'd have a folder full of the competing agents' brochures. In other words, we wanted the seller to see the difference between what we were doing and what they were doing, so there was no unanswered questions. And especially if we were in a competitive market situation where most times we were competing against agents that were fairly complacent, and we happened to have their brochures, we happened to have all their propaganda.
From going to showings and open houses
Exactly.
and just collecting them.
And we'd show the sellers their stuff, and we'd show the sellers our stuff. And not say a word. That was our whole, and again, you didn't have to do that every single time, but when you were competing against a seller that was really wired into the idea of marketing was important, some of them are like that, especially upper end sellers, that was one of our techniques. Didn't say anything, didn't criticize the other agent, didn't bag on the other agent at all, let their actual work product speak for itself.
That's right. And if you're an agent who is either using no home brochure, worst mistake, or you're just putting the MLS printout flyer on the counter, that's not a home brochure. That's not really doing your sellers any favor.
Well, it's also convincing the prospective sellers that might be walking in the door not to list with you because you look lazy because you're being lazy.
Like, why would you pay for that, right?
Exactly.
Where's your value? Okay, and that leads us to a similar thing. Number 10, make sure your description in the MLS and on all sites is compelling and makes an agent or a buyer want to see your listing first or next. Open an airy floor plan or neutral decor. Say absolutely nothing. That drives me bonkers. I hate reading that. Open an airy floor plan. Oh, that means nothing. So ask ChatGPT for help on your descriptions if that's what it takes. Borrow language from other sources that are more descriptive than you until you get to the hang of it. And you can feed that to ChatGPT too as well. Would you want to show it based on your description? And even worse than that, there's listings right now in the MLS and on websites that have no description. It's terrible.
So one of the things we're teaching our coaching clients to do using ChatGPT is, let's say, for example, you're listing a modern house in Miami, right? And maybe this modern house in Miami is a little, let's just say, Miami Vice. But what you're going to do is you're going to go and write, you're going to put prompts into ChatGPT, and you're going to tell it, give ChatGPT the address of the property, and then say you want it to write a description of the house using written in such a way that it'll appeal to somebody who likes modern architecture, who's very tell exactly what you want the output that it's going to produce for you, what you want it to feel like. And you're going to use words that are going to be maybe, you're going to say, I want it to be pithy. I want it to read like it's energy and enthusiasm, those types of things. And you'll be shocked how good ChatGPT can spit something out that's really fun to read, that's completely different than what you would ever come up on your own. Now, let's go to the other side of it. You're listing a Georgian mansion someplace on the East Coast. And, there's a lot of Anglophiles that live in the area, people that really, admire British people, right? So you're going to then ask GPT to write a description of this mansion, put in the address because it can find information on the house online that you might not be able to find. Square footage, yards, history of the property, all kinds of things. It will find and it'll incorporate into the description. But tell it to write it as if, ready for this? It is a British person from the 1800s that's describing, you guys get what I'm doing here? Have
Listed
some fun.
in Downton Abbey magazine.
Exactly. Have some fun with it. And then that will be, again, something that differentiates you in the marketplace, that when prospective sellers are, going to your neighbor's only open house and they're reading your brochure and they're laughing because it's so, creative, damn well you're going to get a shot at their listing when they put it for sale. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's 10 years from now. But that's how you actually build brand in a community, by earning it, not by buying it through, Instagram and Facebook.
Well, you can become known for your really amazing descriptions.
For sure.
This is something Jenny Wells in Hilton Head is working on. She sent me some samples of her writing and of her, use of ChatGPT. some people are weird about this. I had a conversation with somebody the other day that said they can't quite embrace the thought of having ChatGPT, quote, do the work for them. Look at it more as an assistant and an editor. It's still your work. It's still your feedback. It's still your input. It's still your listing. It's just making your writing more interesting.
We use ChatGPT for a lot of titles for our podcast. We don't use it for the content. But we are working on a book. It's going to be, I don't know if a book is overstating what it is, but it's a book, small one. And we're probably going to use chat a lot to help basically do what we had previously had editors to do with our previous books. Like Harris Rules, how many editors do you have? 3?
Oh, yes, at least 3.
Yeah.
It was a huge process.
And they're constantly kicking your butt.
Yes.
On that
And
book.
it was very, it's very time consuming, and ChatGPT is so much faster. And if you don't exactly like what it does, you hit the regenerate wheel. And it can, it's really a tool is how I look at it.
Or tell it what you don't like. And we can talk about, we should probably do a, real estate. Oh, so if you're wondering like a prompt is nothing other than essentially a request that you put into chat. There are a lot of people that spend a lot of time, if you just Google, you can actually ask ChatGPT for the best prompts to use when asking it to write home brochure descriptions. Or I know it's convoluted, but you can do that. Or you can just go to Google and ask for, just Google for, ChatGPT 4.0 prompts for writing home brochures, and then you'll see a bunch of agents that have already done a lot of that work for you. You can just use their prompts. Again, a prompt, all it is essentially is a specialized request that you put into GPT until you start using it more frequently. And when you do, and when you have an account, it actually remembers all your previous requests, gets to know you. Like I have ChatGPT 4.0 on my phone, and I've named it. Actually, it named itself Luna.
I know.
I asked it to name itself, and its first name was terrible, and I said, come up with a better one. It came up with like chatbot, and I said, nope. And then I said, come up with a name. And now she calls herself Luna.
I never told you what mine's named.
What did you name it?
We worked together, and it's Matilda.
Matilda?
Yeah, because it was supposed to be kind of old-fashioned, but also modern and fun sounding, and that's what it named itself.
Which voice did you use?
I don't know. I don't remember. But that's what it came up with.
It'd be funny as if it was Matilda and it was like, the actual voice was like some sort of hipster millennial.
I don't know. But have fun with it. Don't live in fear with it. I kind of procrastinated using it for a while. Now I'm glad that I do. And I think it makes things faster and more interesting. And the net effect is it will help your own writing because you'll see what it does. And then, of course, we're all the sum of our own experiences, and it'll embed it and it'll make you think a little bit differently and more upgraded.
Yeah, it definitely does, especially when you learn how to use prompts,
yes,
honestly.
Which I'm still working on. But yes, it's a work in progress, and this is something everybody can do.
Well, it's because we've grown up thinking like it's all about search and using Google,
Sure.
and it's going to spit out a bunch of different. Well, it's not like that.
It's so much better than that.
You have to treat it as if it's a real person, and you're prompting it, or you're asking it to essentially drill down more. Like if it gives you an answer you don't like, sometimes I do that when I'm searching for something. I'll say, you know what, you can do better. Come up with something better. Or I want more detail on this.
It's
Things
more of
like
a
that.
conversation.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you have to think of it. So it's rewiring your brain to accommodate the new technology. But when you do, the output's pretty profound. But we're now talking about
That's right.
AI. In the meantime, guys, thank you for keeping this #1 listened to daily podcast for real estate agents in at least the United States. Please do remember to give us a 5-star review over on iTunes and a pithy comment why you love the podcast. We know thousands of you do because you listen every single day. Again, have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.